Chapter 1. The Road Out of Nowhere. The Texas sun didn't shine anymore. It burned. It was a blowtorch in the sky, and the asphalt underneath seemed to soak up that fire and spit it back out through the soles of your shoes. The heat was a living thing, an old drunk uncle that wouldn't stop breathing down your neck, stinking of sweat and sun-baked roadkill. Dylan felt it most in his teeth of all places. His molars throbbed when the heat was bad, like the enamel itself was cracking under some invisible pressure. He walked with his shirt tied around his head, sweat soaking through, the fabric reeking of old armpit and dust. His skin was already pink, the burn deepening into something meaner. They hadn't had water since morning. That was 8 hours ago. You ever think, Sam drawled from behind him, that the reason it feels hotter now is just because we know there's no damn AC anywhere anymore? His voice was dry and sharp, like gravel caught in a fan. Like, maybe it's not actually hotter, just feels hotter. Shut up, Mara said. Her voice was hoarse, a rasp ground down by thirst. She walked with her jacket tied around her waist, boots dragging, black hair sticking to her neck. Don't waste your spit. Dylan glanced back at them. They looked like ghosts, pale, sunburnt, their eyes red-rimmed and mean. All three of them were thinner than they'd been 2 months ago, back when the world still had corners you could duck into for a cold Coke or a bottle of cheap beer. Back when there were lights on at night. Now it was nothing but the road, the heat, and the smell of death if the wind shifted just right. It started in San Angelo, when things first went bad. Dylan hadn't even wanted to leave. He'd wanted to hole up in his mom's trailer and wait it out like a thunderstorm. But the thunder never came, only the sickness, and then the things that came with the sickness. He tried not to think about that. About what he'd seen in the dark when the coughing started, when the hospitals overflowed and the army rolled in with guns that didn't do a lick of good. They'd left with nothing but backpacks, a .22 rifle Mara had stolen from her uncle's shed, and a few cans of beans. Now, almost 2 months later, they were out of beans, nearly out of bullets, and God knew how close to running into something they couldn't shoot their way past. Town up ahead, Dylan muttered. He pointed at the wavering smear of rooftops on the horizon. Some squinted, or a mirage. Mirage or not, we need water, Mara said. She lifted her canteen and shook it. It rattled hollow, like a bone jar. We keep moving. The town was called Coyote Bend. At least, that's what the sign said. Sun-bleached wood with half the letters falling off. A cluster of squat buildings sat hunched under the merciless sun, most of them baked into the same gray-brown color as the dirt itself. They slowed as they approached, every sense sharpened. Dylan had the rifle cradled in his arms, sweat-slick hands steady out of habit. Mara carried the machete they'd found in an abandoned truck stop. The blade nicked and dull, but still mean enough to open someone from neck to navel. Sam had his father's old baseball bat, the grip wrapped in electrical tape. The air smelled of scorched weeds and something faintly rotten. The wind stirred a dust devil down the main street, lifting wrappers and paper scraps like ghosts trying to take shape. Looks dead, Sam said. Don't mean it is, Dylan replied. They'd learned that lesson outside Abilene, when they'd gone into a grocery store thinking it was empty and came out running for their lives, chased by 3 of those things. The memory still made Dylan's stomach tighten. The way the creatures had moved, all jerky and wrong, like marionettes whose strings were being yanked by a drunk puppeteer. Their skin was pale, blistered, stretched too thin over their bones. And those eyes, cloudy, milky, yet somehow aware. They hadn't seen one for nearly a week, but that didn't mean they were gone. They crept into Coyote Bend slow, eyes darting to every window, every alley. Dylan's boots scuffed against the dirt road, kicking up little puffs of dust that clung to his sweat. The silence was deep, oppressive, the kind that pressed on your eardrums until you started hearing phantom sounds. Gas station, Mara said, pointing. The sign was rusted, but you could still make out the faded red letters. Texaco. Inside, the air was cooler. Not much, but enough that Dylan felt his shoulders loosen a little. The place was gutted, shelves overturned, glass cracked, a stink of mold and old motor oil. Flies buzzed in the corners, fat and lazy. Mara went straight for the back, searching for bottled water. Sam rummaged through the shelves, looking for anything edible. Dylan stayed near the door, eyes scanning, rifle tight in his hands. The memory hit him suddenly, sharp as a blade. His mother in her kitchen, cracking open a can of Shiner Bock, telling him not to worry, telling him the government would fix it. Her voice soft, tired but steady. She'd been coughing even then, her face pale, eyes yellow at the edges. He blinked hard, forcing the memory back down. Not now. Not here. Empty, Mara called from the back. Her voice had that edge of hopelessness he hated. Nothing but dust. Sam kicked a shelf. The clang echoed too loud in the small space. God damn it. Place is stripped. Keep looking, Dylan said. There's always something. That was when they heard it. A sound from outside, faint dragging, like something heavy being pulled across the dirt. All three froze. Dylan raised the rifle, moving to the window. He peered out through a crack in the blinds. At first, he thought it was a man. Tall, thin, stumbling down the street with the gait of someone drunk or dying. The skin on its arms hung in strips, blackened by sunburn, cracked open like overcooked meat. Its head lolled, and when it turned toward the station, Dylan's stomach dropped. The eyes, cloudy, white, yet locked on the building. It made a sound then, a wet, rattling moan that carried down the street. Another answered, then another. Mara's face went pale. Shit. Sam gripped the bat tighter. How many? Dylan swallowed hard. His mouth was sandpaper. Too many. Outside, the street began to fill with them. Figures emerging from doorways, from behind cars, from alleys where they must have been huddled like roaches. Some crawled on hands and knees, others shuffled, their bodies broken, but moving anyway. Their moans blended into one long, low drone that made the hair on Dylan's arms rise. Mara whispered, "We gotta move. Now." They bolted out the back of the gas station, feet pounding the cracked linoleum, then the hard-packed dirt. The heat slammed into them like a wall, blinding after the dim interior. Dylan led the way, rifle clutched tight, eyes darting for an escape. The creatures were closing in, their movements uncoordinated but relentless. One stumbled toward Sam, arms outstretched, fingers raw and bleeding. Sam swung the bat hard. The crack echoed. Bone or wood, Dylan couldn't tell. The thing went down, twitching in the dust. "Go!" Sam shouted. They sprinted down the alley, lungs burning. Dylan's chest felt like it might cave in, the heat sucking every drop of moisture from his body. His vision swam. At the end of the alley stood a chain-link fence, 8 feet tall. Beyond it lay open desert, shimmering with heat. Mara didn't hesitate. She slung the machete over her back and scrambled up, boots scrabbling against the links. Dylan covered her, rifle raised. He fired once, twice. The shots cracking the silence. One creature dropped, its skull bursting like an overripe melon. Another staggered but kept coming, holes in its chest leaking something dark and foul. "Come on," Mara yelled from the top of the fence. She swung over and dropped hard on the other side. Sam climbed next, teeth gritted, bat slung over his back. Dylan fired another shot, then slung the rifle and started climbing. The metal was hot, burning his palms, but he ignored it, hauling himself up with every ounce of strength left. He was halfway when a hand closed around his ankle. The grip was iron, fingers digging into his flesh. Dylan looked down and saw a face staring up at him through the fence. Skin melted, lips peeled back in a grin of rotted teeth. He kicked hard once, twice. The thing wouldn't let go. Panic surged through him, white and sharp. Then Sam was there, swinging the bat down. The thing's skull caved in with a wet crunch, and the grip loosened. Dylan hauled himself over the fence and dropped to the other side, knees buckling on impact. They didn't stop running until the town was a blur behind them, until the moans were swallowed by the hot, empty wind. They collapsed under the shade of a dead mesquite tree, chests heaving, mouths dry as sand. The horizon shimmered, endless and merciless. "Close one," Sam gasped. He wiped blood. He didn't know if it was his or theirs from his hands on his jeans. Mara didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring back toward the town, machete clutched in her hands. Her eyes were distant, haunted. Dylan lay back in the dust, the rifle across his chest, the sky above him a white blaze. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He closed his eyes and thought, not for the first time, that Texas itself wanted them dead. It wasn't just the heat. It wasn't just the creatures. It was the land, the wide, empty land, endless and uncaring, swallowing towns and people alike without so much as a burp. He thought of his mother again, of the trailer, of her voice telling him everything would be fine. He knew now she'd been wrong. Nothing was fine. Nothing would ever be fine again. The heat pressed down and the silence returned. They had survived another day. But in the brutal heart of Texas, survival was only ever temporary. And Dylan knew, deep in his bones, that something worse than thirst or hunger was waiting out there in the dust. Something that made even the moaning things in Coyote Bend seem small. He didn't know what it was yet, but it was coming. Chapter 2. The desert eats everything. The desert didn't want them. That was Dylan's first clear thought when he woke the next morning. The sun wasn't even up yet, but the air was already hot enough that sweat prickled his skin. He sat up under the mesquite tree, mouth dry, tongue like a strip of leather. Sam was still asleep, curled in a ball with the bat across his chest, but Mara was awake, crouched in the dust, sharpening her machete with slow, precise strokes. "Sleep it all," Dylan croaked. Mara shook her head. Her eyes looked darker than usual, hollows cut deep beneath them. Things kept moving in the dark. Don't know if it was wind or, Dylan didn't ask. He didn't want to know. The horizon stretched flat and endless, a sheet of pale orange already bruised by the sun's rising glow. The desert wasn't beautiful anymore, if it ever had been. It was merciless. The dirt was the color of dried blood, the grass dead, the sky too big to look at for long. It made a man feel like he could just dissolve into nothing out there, swallowed whole by heat and silence. Sam stirred, groaned, sat up, dreamed about cheeseburgers, he muttered. Double meat, double cheese. Dripping grease. You could smell it from a mile away. He licked his cracked lips, then laughed without humor. Woke up and remembered we ain't eaten in, 2 days? 3, Mara said. Silence followed. None of them wanted to say the truth out loud. Food was harder to find than bullets. And water, well, water was a goddamn miracle when you stumbled on it. Dylan pushed himself to his feet. His knees wobbled. He steadied himself on the rifle and squinted east. The road stretched that way, broken asphalt splitting the dirt like a scar. "We move," he said. "Nothing here worth dying under." Mara sheathed the machete and stood. Sam sighed, grabbed his bat, and followed. By mid-morning, the heat was a fist pressing down on their skulls. Their shadows shrank beneath them, sharp as knives on the cracked asphalt. They walked in silence, talking wasted spit. Dylan's mind wandered the way it always did when the road got long. He thought about his mom again, the way she'd hum Patsy Cline while washing dishes, her voice soft and scratchy from too many cigarettes. He wondered if she turned. If she was one of those things now, stumbling through some town, mouth slack, eyes cloudy. He pictured her like that, her nightgown torn, bare feet scraping along the dirt. He shook the thought off quick, like shaking off a rattlesnake that had just brushed her boot. Around noon, they saw the first sign of water. A tank, one of those old windmill-fed jobs, stood off the road, silver and sun-scorched. The windmill itself was busted, blades bent and hanging like broken fingers, but the tank might still hold something. They approached cautious. Dylan raised the rifle. Mara scanned the scrub brush. Sam walked point, shoulders tense. The tank stank before they even reached it. Jesus, Sam muttered, pulling his shirt up over his nose. The smell was rot and rust and something else, something sickly sweet that clung to the back of your throat. Mara climbed the ladder first, slow and quiet. Dylan watched her reach the top, peer inside. She went still. "What is it?" Dylan called. She looked down at him, face pale. "You don't want to see." "Water?" Sam asked hopefully. "Yeah," Mara said. "But it's not right." Dylan climbed up next. When he reached the top, he saw what she meant. The tank was half full of water, sure, but floating in it were bodies. Swollen, pale, their skin splitting from the heat. 3 of them. A man, a woman, and something smaller. Maybe a child, maybe not. The smell was thick enough to make his eyes water. "Fuck," Dylan whispered. Mara's voice was flat. "Somebody poisoned the well." "No," Dylan said. His stomach churned. "Not somebody. The world did." They climbed down, silent. Sam didn't ask for details. He just looked at their faces and said, "Guess it's a no-go then." By late afternoon, their throats were raw, their lips cracked and bleeding. Every step felt heavier. The desert stretched on forever, mocking them with its emptiness. It was Mara who spotted the house. A squat ranch-style place, half collapsed, sitting off the road like a mirage. "Worth a look?" Sam asked, voice rough. "Could be supplies," Dylan said. "Could be worse." They went anyway, because what else was there to do? The front door hung open. The smell hit them as soon as they stepped inside. Stale, old, like mildew and meat left too long in the sun. The living room was a ruin. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, walls smeared with something dark and long-dried. The family photos were still on the walls, though faded snapshots of a smiling couple and 2 kids. Happy once. Before. Mara moved cautious, machete ready. Sam swung the bat at shadows. Dylan kept the rifle steady. The kitchen was worse. The table was overturned, plates shattered on the floor. A dark stain spread across the linoleum, its edges curling where heat had baked it in. And the smell, stronger here. "Don't like this," Sam muttered. "Basement," Mara said, pointing. A door stood half open, dark stairs leading down. They stared at it. "Hell no," Sam said. "No way I'm going down there." Dylan's throat was screaming for water, though. His stomach cramped with hunger. He looked at Mara. Her eyes said the same thing his did. What if there's something down there that could keep us alive another day? He swallowed hard, gripped the rifle. "We checked." Sam cursed under his breath, but he followed. The stairs creaked under their weight. The air grew cooler, but not fresher. The stink was thicker here, clinging to their clothes, their skin. At the bottom was a concrete room. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with cans and jars. Food. Real food. Holy shit, somebody eat. He dropped to his knees in front of the shelves, hands trembling as he reached for a can. Beans. Fucking beans. "Careful," Mara snapped. That was when Dylan saw the other shelves. The ones on the far wall. Not food, not supplies. Jars. Dozens of them. Big mason jars filled with liquid the color of old piss. Floating in them were things, fingers, eyes, chunks of flesh. Preserved like pickles. "Jesus Christ," Dylan whispered. Mara followed his gaze. Her face went white. Then came the sound. A scrape from the far corner. Something moved in the shadows. Dylan raised the rifle. Mara lifted the machete. Sam froze, can of beans still clutched in his hands. The thing that stepped out of the dark wasn't one of the moaning, stumbling husks they'd seen before. It was worse. Its skin was stretched too tight, pulled across its bones like parchment. Its mouth was sewn shut with black thread, lips puckered and raw. Its eyes bulged, wide and unblinking, the whites gone yellow. And its hands were long, the fingers sharpened to points like claws. It made no sound, just stared at them. Dylan's trigger finger twitched, but before he could fire, the thing moved. Chapter 3, The House That Wouldn't Die. The basement went red. It happened in a blink, in the kind of speed that made the brain lag behind, like a VHS tape skipping forward. 1 second, the thing was crouched in the corner, its long fingers curling and uncurling like spider legs. The next, it was on Sam. He didn't even scream, just let out a grunt as the thing slammed him back into the shelves. Jars tumbled, shattered. The stink of vinegar and rot filled the air as pale floating things spilled across the concrete like wet toys. "Sam!" Mara shouted. Dylan's rifle kicked, the shot exploding in the tight space. The bullet hit the wall, chunks of concrete spitting into the dark. The thing was too fast. It moved like no human ever should, twisting and jerking, limbs bending at wrong angles. Sam swung the bat. It cracked against the creature's side. It didn't flinch, didn't even slow down. Its own mouth tore open just a little with the impact, stitches ripping one by one. A wet hiss escaped, like steam escaping from a kettle. Dylan aimed again, sweat pouring into his eyes. He pulled the trigger. This time the bullet took the thing in the chest. It staggered, but only for a second. Then it rushed him. The force knocked him back. His head smacked the concrete wall, vision flashing white. The rifle clattered away. Hot breath, sour and meat sweet, washed over his face. Mara's machete flashed. Steel bit into gray flesh. The thing shrieked. Not a moan like the others, but a high, tearing sound that rattled Dylan's teeth. It spun toward her, clawed fingers swiping. They tore across her arm, slicing deep. Blood ran hot and bright down her skin. "Motherfucker!" Mara roared. She swung again, wild, desperate. The blade hacked into its neck, stuck halfway. Sam was on it then, bat rising, falling, rising again. Each swing landed with wet cracks. Bone splintered. Flesh tore. Dylan scrambled for the rifle, fingers slipping on the concrete. He grabbed it, rolled on his back, aimed up. The thing's face loomed above Mara, stitches tearing wider as it opened that ruined mouth. Its teeth were brown, filed sharp. Dylan fired. The bullet tore through its head. The creature jerked once, then collapsed, twitching, onto the floor. The stink of blood and rot filled the basement, thicker than before. Silence. Then Sam's ragged breathing. Mara's low curses. Dylan's own heartbeat, hammering like a fist against the door. They didn't speak for a long time. Mara sat against the wall, clutching her bleeding arm. The machete lay beside her, blade slick. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight, but she didn't mac.